First contact protocol. The Artemis hung in high orbit above Earth, her sleek hull reflecting the golden sunrise. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, watching the approaching crystalline shuttle with a mixture of anticipation and concern. The vessel sparkled like a diamond shard against the void of space, a testament to the advanced technology of the crystalline consortium. "They're really going through with this," Lieutenant Rivera muttered beside her, adjusting his uniform for the 10th time in as many minutes. "A crystalline royal on our ship. The brass must be losing their minds." Sarah maintained her composed expression, though she shared his disbelief. The crystalline consortium had spent the last century treating humanity like primitive upstarts who'd stumbled onto faster-than-light travel by accident. Now Princess Tlara, heir to their vast empire of star systems, had specifically requested passage on a human vessel for her ceremonial tour of realms. The diplomatic corps spent 3 days trying to talk her out of it, Sarah replied, straightening her captain's insignia. Apparently, she was quite insistent. Said something about experiencing the diversity of galactic culture. The shuttle's approach was perfect, too perfect. Its trajectory and speed matched regulations down to the microsecond, making the human pilot's more organic style seem almost sloppy in comparison. Sarah had served 15 years in the Earth Space Force, and she'd never seen flying that precise. Shuttle Prisma requesting docking clearance, the comm system chimed, the artificial translator making the alien words sound almost musical. Bearer of her celestial radiance, Princess Tlara of the Crystalline Consortium. Sarah took a deep breath. Artemis Control grants clearance. Welcome aboard, Shuttle Prisma. The docking procedure went smoothly, each step executed with mathematical precision. Sarah led her welcome party to the main airlock, noting how her crew struggled to contain their curiosity. Most humans had never seen a crystalline up close. Their species was notorious for their privacy and their belief in their own superiority. The airlock cycled, and Sarah steeled herself for the diplomatic challenge of her career. The inner door slid open with a soft hiss. Princess Tlara stood exactly as the briefing materials had described crystalline royalty. Tall, with iridescent skin that seemed to catch and refract light, creating subtle rainbow patterns across her ceremonial robes. But there was something else, something the briefings hadn't mentioned. An intensity in her faceted eyes that spoke of barely contained excitement. "Commander Chen," Tlara said, her translator rendering her crystal-clear tones into standard English. "I appreciate you accepting my rather unusual request." Behind the princess, her entourage of advisors and guards looked distinctly uncomfortable. Their crystalline features were set in expressions that Sarah interpreted as barely disguised disdain. One advisor, distinguished by elaborate markings on his robes, stepped forward. "Your Radiance, there are still several prestigious consortium vessels available. It would be more appropriate." Tlara raised a hand, silencing him with casual authority. "Advisor Vex, we've discussed this extensively. The tour of realms is meant to broaden understanding. How can I understand the galaxy if I experience it only from within our own carefully controlled environment?" Sarah noticed something in the princess's tone, a hint of rebellion carefully wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. This wasn't just a whim. It was a calculated move of some kind. "Commander," Tlara continued, "I've reviewed the Artemis's specifications extensively. While your technology is different from what I'm accustomed to, your ship has completed some remarkable missions. The Toph City rescue operation was particularly impressive." Sarah blinked in surprise. Few outside of Earth Space Force knew the details of that mission, where the Artemis had navigated a collapsed star system to save a stranded research team. "You've done your homework, Your Radiance. Please, call me Tlara. And yes, I believe in being thoroughly informed." The princess gestured to her entourage. "I've brought only essential personnel, as requested. My security team has been briefed on your protocols, and my advisors are prepared to integrate with your crew rotations." One of the guards shifted uncomfortably at this, his crystalline features catching the light in a way that suggested disapproval. Sarah made a mental note to watch that one carefully. "We've prepared quarters according to consortium specifications," Sarah said, gesturing toward the main corridor. "Though I should warn you, our artificial gravity occasionally fluctuates by 0.001%. "How wonderfully unpredictable," Tilara replied, and Sarah could have sworn she saw a smile play across those crystalline features. "Shall we begin the tour?" As they walked through the Artemis corridors, Sarah noticed how the princess studied everything. Not with the expected disdain, but with genuine curiosity. She asked questions about the manual backup systems, the redundant safety protocols, and the seemingly chaotic but effective way the human crew coordinated their duties. "Your ship feels alive," Tilara observed as they passed through engineering. "Our vessels are perfect in their precision, but they lack this energy." Advisor Vex made a sound that the translator didn't bother to interpret, but his meaning was clear enough. Sarah chose to focus on the princess instead. "The Artemis has personality, that's for sure. We've learned to work with her quirks rather than trying to eliminate them." "Fascinating." Tilara paused at a viewport, watching Earth rotate below. "You know, Commander, there's something I haven't told anyone, not even my father. The real reason I chose a human ship for my tour." Sarah waited, sensing the weight of the moment. "The galaxy is changing," Tilara continued. "The old ways, isolation, rigid hierarchy, the belief that technological superiority equals cultural superiority, they're becoming obsolete. Humanity has achieved in decades what took other species centuries, not because your technology is better, but because you think differently. You adapt. You embrace chaos and turn it into opportunity." The princess turned, her crystalline features catching the light from Earth. "I believe the future belongs to those who can bridge the gap between order and chaos, between tradition and innovation. This journey isn't just my tour of realms, Commander Chen. It's my attempt to understand how humanity does the impossible." Sarah felt the weight of those alien eyes studying her. "And what if you don't like what you discover about us?" "That's exactly the kind of question a human would ask," Tilara replied, amusement in her translated voice. Direct, honest, and slightly confrontational. "I think I'm going to enjoy this journey very much." As if on cue, the ship's alert system chimed. "Commander to the bridge," Lieutenant Rivera's voice came through. "We're picking up some unusual readings from the Kuiper Belt. You might want to see this." Tilara's eyes sparkled with interest. "Unusual readings? How delightfully unpredictable. Shall we investigate, Commander?" Sarah had a feeling this was just the beginning of what would prove to be a very interesting voyage. "Welcome aboard the Artemis, Your Radiance. It seems the galaxy has already planned our first adventure. Breaking the ice." The unusual readings from the Kuiper Belt turned out to be just the beginning. 3 days into their journey, as the Artemis prepared for its first fold space jump, Sarah found herself facing a challenge that no diplomatic protocol could have prepared her for. "What do you mean, incompatible?" she asked, staring at Chief Engineer Marcus Wong's diagnostic display. The holographic readout showed a complex interaction between the ship's systems and the crystalline technology that Princess Tilara's security team had insisted on installing. "Their quantum harmonizers are trying to impose perfect stability on our fold space calculations," Marcus explained, running his hands through his already disheveled hair. "Our systems are designed to adapt to spatial fluctuations in real time. Their tech is fighting our tech, and if we don't resolve this before the jump..." He left the sentence hanging. Sarah knew the implications. A destabilized fold space jump could scatter them across half the galaxy. "Can we remove their systems?" Advisor Vex has made it clear that removing their protective measures would violate at least 6 different diplomatic protocols. Lieutenant Rivera chimed in from his station. "They're convinced our navigation systems are too crude to ensure Her Radiance's safety." Sarah was about to respond when the bridge door slid open, admitting Princess Tilara herself. The crystalline royal had shed her ceremonial robes for a more practical outfit that somehow managed to both complement and contrast with the human crew's uniforms. I couldn't help but overhear, Tilara said, her translator perfectly rendering her crystalline tones. There seems to be a problem with integration. Your Highness, Sarah began, but Tilara raised a hand. Please, Commander. I chose a human ship precisely because I wanted to experience different approaches. Explain the issue to me as you would to a fellow officer. Sarah exchanged glances with Marcus, who shrugged. Your security systems are trying to perfect our imperfections, she said bluntly. But those imperfections are actually features, not bugs. Human fold space technology works because it adapts to chaos rather than trying to eliminate it. Tilara's faceted eyes studied the diagnostic display with intense interest. Fascinating. Our entire civilization is built on the principle of perfect crystalline structure. The idea of intentionally incorporating chaos. She paused, considering. Advisor Vex will have strong opinions about this. Your Radiance. The advisor in question emerged from the corridor as if summoned. I must insist that we maintain our safety protocols. The human approach to fold space navigation is, he searched for a diplomatic word, unorthodox. Unorthodox enough to have a 97% success rate, Marcus pointed out, higher than the galactic average. Through sheer luck, Vex countered, his crystalline features refracting light in patterns that suggested agitation. Through adaptation. Tilara corrected him quietly. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. We've always assumed that our way was the only way because it was perfect. But what if perfection isn't always the answer? What if there's strength in imperfection? Sarah watched as the princess moved to the engineering station, her movements graceful yet purposeful. Show me how your system works, Tilara requested. Not the diplomatic briefing version. Show me the real process. For the next hour, Marcus explained the intricacies of human fold space technology. He showed how the Artemis computers didn't just accept spatial fluctuations, but actively used them, surfing the quantum foam like a wave. Tilara asked sharp, insightful questions, occasionally making connections that even surprised the engineer. It's like watching a crystal learn to bend instead of break, Rivera whispered to Sarah, and she had to agree. There was something transformative happening before their eyes. Finally, Tilara straightened. Advisor Vex, I want you to work with Chief Engineer Wong to create a hybrid system. Not by forcing our technology to dominate theirs, but by finding a way for both approaches to coexist. Your Radiance. Vex protested. The computational models alone would take weeks to. Then I suggest you begin immediately. Tilara interrupted, a hint of steel beneath her melodic tones. Consider it a practical lesson in diplomatic relations. After Vex and Marcus left to begin their collaborative effort, Tilara turned to Sarah. You know, Commander, my people have a saying. The perfect crystal contains no room for growth. I never truly understood what that meant until now. And now? Sarah prompted. Now I think perhaps we've been interpreting it wrong all along. We saw it as a warning against imperfection. But maybe it's a warning against the limitations of perfection itself. She gestured at the star-filled view screen. The universe isn't perfect. It's wild and chaotic and beautiful. Perhaps it's time we learn to embrace that chaos as humans do. Sarah smiled. That's a pretty revolutionary thought for a crystalline royal. Revolutionary thoughts are exactly what the Tour of Realms is supposed to inspire, Tilara replied. Though I doubt this is quite what my father had in mind. A soft chime interrupted them. Marcus requesting permission to begin the hybrid system integration. Sarah looked at Tilara, who nodded her approval. You realize this is completely unprecedented, Sarah said as she authorized the procedure. If it works, you'll be the first crystalline royal to travel through fold space using human navigation principles. And if it doesn't work, then we adapt. It's what humans do best. Tilara's features caught the light in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as a smile. I'm counting on it, Commander. I'm counting on it. Void Storm. The hybrid navigation system worked better than anyone had expected. The Artemis' first fold space jump was so smooth that even Advisor Vex had to admit the success, though he did so with the stiff formality of someone swallowing something bitter. But as they emerged into the Carina sector, they encountered something that neither human adaptability nor crystalline precision had prepared them for. "What in the seven hells is that?" Lieutenant Rivera's voice cut through the bridge's usual quiet hum. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to be unraveling. Sarah leaned forward in her command chair, studying the phenomenon. It looked like a tear in reality, a writhing mass of void-black tendrils that twisted in ways that hurt the eyes. Analysis. "Sensors are going crazy," Rivera reported. It's like space itself is being unmade out there. Whatever it is, it's expanding, and it's between us and our plotted course." Tilara stepped onto the bridge, her crystalline form reflecting the emergency lights that had automatically activated. "A void storm," she said, her translator barely keeping up with the urgency in her voice. "But it shouldn't be possible here. The Carina sector is stable." "Was stable," Sarah corrected, watching as the phenomenon grew visibly larger. "Options. Standard protocol would be to retreat to safe space and wait it out," Advisor Vex stated, entering behind Tilara. "The consortium has extensive data on void storm behavior. They typically dissipate within 14 to 20 standard days." "We don't have 14 days," Marcus's voice came through the comm. "That storm is generating quantum interference. It's affecting our fold space drive stability. If we don't make it through the sector within the next 6 hours, we'll be stranded here for months while I rebuild the quantum matrices." Sarah saw Tilara and Vex exchange alarmed looks. The implications were clear. A delay of that magnitude would throw the entire tour of realms into chaos, potentially destabilizing diplomatic relations across multiple species. "What about going around?" Rivera suggested. "The storm's expansion rate makes that impossible," Tilara replied, moving to study the sensor data. "By the time we reached any alternate route, the affected area would have grown to encompass it. We must either retreat immediately or find a way through." Sarah stood, moving closer to the view screen. "You said this shouldn't be possible here." "Why not?" "The Carina sector has quantum stabilizers," Vex explained, his tone suggesting he was speaking to a child. "Ancient technology, left by precursor species. They maintain spatial integrity throughout the region. For a void storm to form here, something must have disrupted them. Or someone," Tilara added quietly. Sarah turned to look at her. "You think this is deliberate?" "The timing is convenient," Tilara said. "The first crystalline royal to travel on a human ship, trapped in a seemingly impossible situation. If we retreat, it proves humans are inadequate. If we press forward and fail—" "We're not going to fail," Sarah stated firmly. She turned to her crew. "Marcus, get up here. Rivera, pull up everything we have on void storm structures. And somebody wake up Dr. Patel in theoretical physics. I want to know exactly how this thing works." Within minutes, the bridge had transformed into an impromptu war room. Dr. Patel, her dark hair still mussed from sleep, was excitedly pointing out patterns in the storm's behavior, while Marcus argued physics with Vex, their earlier antagonism forgotten in the face of the scientific challenge. "Look here," Tilara said suddenly, pointing to a visualization of the storm's quantum signature. "The disruption isn't random. There's a pattern, but it's twisted somehow. Like a corrupted program," Marcus mused. "If someone did sabotage the stabilizers, they might have left traces in the execution pattern." "Can we use that?" Sarah asked. Dr. Patel's eyes lit up. "Maybe. If we can identify the base pattern, we might be able to, well, not exactly cancel it out, but surf it," Sarah finished, remembering their earlier conversation about human fold space technology. She turned to Tilara. "Your Highness, how do you feel about taking your tour of realms surfing?" Tilara's faceted eyes sparkled with something that might have been excitement. "I believe, Commander, that this is exactly the kind of experience I was hoping for when I chose a human ship. The next 4 hours were a blur of calculations, arguments, and increasingly creative problem-solving. They discovered that the void storm, while devastatingly powerful, followed underlying mathematical principles that combined aspects of both quantum mechanics and crystalline growth patterns. It was, as Marcus put it, nature trying to grow a perfect crystal in a quantum foam, and failing spectacularly. The solution they devised was either brilliant or insane, depending on who you asked. They would use the crystalline harmonizers not to impose order, but to predict the storm's crystallization attempts. Meanwhile, the human navigation systems would actively seek out the points where those attempts failed, using the resulting quantum distortions to propel them through. It's like dancing with chaos, Tilara said as they made final preparations, finding the rhythm in the randomness. That's a very human way of looking at it, Sarah noted with a smile. Perhaps I'm learning. Tilara turned to face her. You know, if this works, it will change everything. Not just void storm navigation, but the fundamental way our peoples approach problem solving. And if it doesn't work, then we'll have given the galaxy one hell of a light show. Kilara's translator rendered her response with a distinctly human inflection, surprising a laugh out of Sarah. All stations report ready, Rivera announced. Storm boundary in 2 minutes. Sarah took her command chair, noting that Tilara chose to remain standing beside it, rather than retreat to the safety of her quarters. Sometimes, the princess said quietly, the perfect crystal must learn to dance. Take us in, Sarah ordered. Let's show the galaxy what happens when precision meets adaptation. The Artemis plunged into the void storm, and the universe around them began to unravel. But they were ready for it, riding the quantum currents like solar winds, turning destruction into momentum. They were no longer fighting the chaos or trying to impose order upon it. They were becoming part of its dance, and in doing so, they found their way through. The hunter's shadow. The Artemis emerged from the void storm into what should have been empty space. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by warships. 7 vessels, Drachnid configuration, Rivera reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. Heavy cruiser class. They're charging weapons. Sarah's mind raced. The Drachnids were supposed to be contained in their own sector, held back by a coalition of species that included both humanity and the crystalline consortium. Their presence here was impossible, unless someone had helped them. This was a trap, Tilara said, her crystalline features hardening. They knew we'd have to navigate through the storm. They were waiting for us to exhaust our resources doing so. Incoming transmission, Rivera announced. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a Drachnid commander. Their chitinous face was adorned with the ceremonial scars of their warrior caste, and their compound eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. Princess Tilara. The commander's translated voice filled the bridge. Your father's desperation to appear progressive has delivered you right into our hands. The crystalline consortium's heir, trapped on a primitive human vessel. How convenient. Commander Vexthar, Tilara replied, her voice cold. I should have known. Still bitter about being passed over for the consortium's military contract. Sarah glanced at Tilara, noting the steel in her stance. There was clearly history here. The Drachnid commander chittered in what might have been amusement. The consortium chose to ally with humans instead of accepting our superior combat technology. Now we'll demonstrate exactly how foolish that decision was. Surrender the princess, and we might let your crew live as slaves. Counter-proposal. Sarah stood, moving to stand beside Tilara. Withdraw now, and we won't have to show you why the consortium chose human ingenuity over Drachnid brute force. Vexthar's mandibles clicked in derision. Your ship is damaged from the void storm. Your weapons are inferior. Your shields are hybrid technology, Tilara interrupted. A perfect fusion of crystalline precision and human adaptability. Something you clearly didn't account for when you sabotaged the sector's stabilizers. Sarah caught the slight shift in the Drachnid's posture. Tilara's words had hit home. "Marcus," she said quietly into her calm, "tell me you've got something creative up your sleeve. Remember how we used the storm's crystallization patterns?" Marcus replied, "Well, there's still a lot of quantum distortion out there. If we reversed the harmonizers, we could create our own microstorms." Tilara finished, her eyes lighting up. "Commander Chen, I believe I'm about to witness more of that famous human tactical improvisation." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Rivera, plot a course through their formation. Marcus, start your like show. Your Highness, you might want to hold on to something." The next few minutes were chaos, but controlled chaos, the kind humans excelled at creating in crystalline technology, could perfectly predict. The Artemis dove between the Drachnid ships, leaving trails of localized quantum distortions in their wake. Where the void storm had tried to crystallize space itself, these artificial distortions created patches of pure disorder. Drachnid targeting systems, designed to predict normal ship movements, couldn't cope with the quantum uncertainty the Artemis was generating. Their shots went wide, sometimes curving in impossible directions as space itself warped around them. "Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons," Marcus reported gleefully. "They never considered we might weaponize the very fabric of space-time. Your father's going to be very interested in this application of our technology," Sarah commented to Tilara as they watched another Drachnid cruiser spin out of formation, its systems scrambled by a quantum wave. "My father is going to have a crystalline meltdown," Tilara replied, her translator somehow managing to convey both amusement and satisfaction. This is exactly the kind of unpredictable human influence he was afraid of. "Drachnid vessels are retreating," Rivera announced. Though fleeing in panic might be more accurate, their commander's last transmission was colorful. Something about demons who dance with chaos. "A fitting description of humanity," Advisor Vex said, and for once, he didn't sound disapproving. "Perhaps there is something to be said for your methods after all." Sarah was about to respond when a new alert caught her attention. "What now?" "We're picking up a distress signal," Rivera reported. It's coming from the stabilizer network. There's someone still alive in there." Tilara moved to study the signal. "That's impossible. The stabilizers are automated. Unless..." Her features shifted in what Sarah had learned to recognize as the crystalline equivalent of growing pale. "Unless someone was trapped inside when they were sabotaged." "Life signs," Sarah demanded. 1. Rivera's voice was grim, "and they're failing. Whatever the Drachnids did to the system, it's killing them." Tilara turned to Sarah, her faceted eyes intense. "Commander, I know we just survived one impossible situation, but I need to ask you to attempt another. That signal, the pattern suggests it's coming from a crystalline youth. One of our children, lost during a cultural exchange program months ago. We thought them dead." Sarah looked at the readings. The stabilizer network was still dangerously unstable, its quantum field fluctuating wildly. Attempting a rescue would mean risking everything they'd just fought to protect. She met Tilara's gaze and saw something there. Not a princess asking for a favor, but an equal asking for trust. "Rivera, plot an approach vector. Marcus, see if you can adapt our storm surfing trick to handle the stabilizer's energy field. Your Highness, ready for one more dance with chaos." Tilara's features caught the light in that now familiar smile. "Commander, I'm beginning to think chaos is the most natural state of the universe. We were just too rigid to see it before." The Artemis turned toward the ancient stabilizer network, its hybrid systems humming with power. They had survived a void storm and outmaneuvered a Drachnid battle fleet. Now they faced something perhaps even more challenging, saving a life from the quantum chaos they had learned to navigate. But they would do it together, humans and crystallines, precision and adaptation working as one. Because that, Sarah was beginning to realize, was the true power they had discovered. Not just surviving chaos, but learning to thrive in it. Bridge of Stars. The ancient stabilizer network loomed before them, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with erratic energy. What had once been a perfect lattice of quantum regulators now resembled a sprawling, fractured web, its broken segments casting prismatic distortions across space. "Life signs are weakening," Rivera reported, his voice tight with concern. "The quantum fluctuations are interfering with our sensors, but from what we can tell, they're in the central hub." Sarah studied the tactical display, where Marcus and Tilera's teams had mapped out the network's failing systems. The path to the central hub was a maze of collapsing quantum fields and crystalline debris. One wrong move would tear the Artemis apart at the atomic level. "We can't take the ship in," Advisor Vex stated, his tone for once lacking its usual condescension. "The structural integrity." "No," Tilera interrupted. "But we don't have to." She turned to Sarah. "Commander, your ship carries emergency quantum suits, correct? For fold space drive maintenance." Sarah nodded slowly, seeing where this was going. "They're not rated for this kind of exposure." "But they could be," Marcus chimed in, catching Tilera's idea. "If we integrated them with crystalline shielding technology, we'd have approximately 20 minutes before total shield failure," Tilera finished. "Enough time to reach the central hub. But not enough time to get back." Sarah completed the thought. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Tilera straightened, her crystalline form catching the light of the destabilizing network. "I volunteer to." "No," Sarah cut her off. "You're too important. The diplomatic consequences alone." "With respect, Commander," Tilera's voice carried a new authority. "This is exactly why I must go. My people need to see that their future ruler is willing to risk everything for a single life." And she smiled that now familiar smile. "I've learned a few things about adapting to chaos." Sarah recognized the look in those alien eyes. It was the same determination she saw in her own crews when the impossible needed to be done. "We go together," she decided. "Two suits, two sets of skills. Rivera, you have the bridge." The next few minutes were a blur of preparation. Marcus and Vex worked together to modify the quantum suits, their former rivalry forgotten in the urgency of their task. The hybrid shields they created were beautiful in their complexity, crystalline precision providing the framework, human adaptability filling in the gaps. 19 minutes, Marcus reminded them as they stood in the airlock. "After that, the quantum fields will tear through everything." Sarah checked her suit's systems one last time. Beside her, Tilera did the same, her movements precise yet fluid. "Ready to dance with chaos one more time, Your Highness." "I believe, Commander, that I'm finally beginning to hear the music." They launched from the Artemis, maneuvering through the debris field using short bursts from their suit thrusters. The quantum distortions made navigation almost impossible. Almost. But where human instincts failed, crystalline precision guided them. And where rigid patterns broke down, human adaptability found new paths. There, Tilera pointed toward a pulsing core of energy. "The central hub. But these readings, the quantum field is completely unstable." Sarah's suit sensors confirmed it. The entire network was approaching critical failure. "How long for the child?" "Minutes at most. The containment field around their stasis pod is failing." They pushed forward, their hybrid shields barely holding against the quantum storm. Through gaps in the crystalline structure, Sarah caught glimpses of what looked like frozen time itself. Moments stretched and shattered by the failing stabilizers. The central hub was a dome of pure energy, its surface rippling with quantum possibilities. Inside, barely visible through the chaos, was a small stasis pod. The readings showed one life sign, faint but persistent. "The pod's shielding is integrated with the network," Tilera analyzed quickly. "We can't simply remove it without causing a cascade failure." "Then we don't remove it," Sarah replied, an idea forming. "We replace it. Our suit's hybrid shields. They're speaking both languages, quantum and crystalline. If we channel the field through our suit's systems," Tilera caught on immediately. "Create a bridge between order and chaos." Yes, it could work. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of the pod. The quantum storm raged around them, time itself bending and warping. But in that moment, Sarah felt an almost supernatural clarity. This was what humanity did best, not conquering chaos, but finding harmony within it. Now, Tilara commanded, and they activated their hybrid shields at full power. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Energy flowed through their suits, creating a stable pocket in the quantum storm. The stasis pod systems recognized the pattern, part crystalline, part human, wholly new, and began to harmonize with it. Pods unlocked. Sarah reported through gritted teeth. The strain on their suits was enormous. But we got maybe 2 minutes before total shield failure. Tilara was already moving, her movements precise despite the quantum turbulence. She reached the pod, her crystalline features reflecting the swirling energy as she checked its occupant. They're alive. Unconscious, but alive. The return journey was a blur of desperate navigation and failing systems. Their suits' shields were disintegrating, the quantum storm tearing at the very fabric of their existence. But they moved together, human and crystalline, each compensating for the other's weaknesses, each building on the other's strengths. They reached the Artemis with seconds to spare. As the airlock cycled, Sarah caught one last glimpse of the stabilizer network, beginning to collapse in on itself, its ancient order finally giving way to chaos. Hours later, after the medical team had confirmed the rescued youth would make a full recovery, Sarah found Tilara standing at the observation window, watching the stars. "You know," the princess said without turning, "my people have spent millennia pursuing perfection. We thought that was our strength. But today I learned that true strength lies in imperfection, in the ability to adapt, to change, to find beauty in the chaos. And what will the consortium think of that philosophy? They'll have to adapt." Tilara turned, her crystalline features catching the starlight. "Because that's the future I see now. Not a perfect crystal, unchanging and alone, but a bridge between order and chaos, between precision and adaptation. A future where humans and crystallines work together not despite our differences, but because of them." Sarah smiled. "Sounds like your tour of realms turned out to be quite an education." Indeed, Tilara's features shifted in what Sarah now recognized as joy, though perhaps not the one my father expected. He wanted me to learn about the galaxy. Instead, I learned about change. She gestured to the stars streaming past the window. Out there, chaos and order danced together in an endless pattern. It's time we joined that dance. The Artemis continued its journey through space, carrying its crew of humans and crystallines, of dreamers and pragmatists, of those who sought order and those who embraced chaos. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, new possibilities were taking shape, bridges being built between different ways of thinking, of being, of seeing the universe. Because in the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, not technology or strength or even adaptability, but the simple, profound understanding that the most beautiful crystals are the ones that know how to dance.